It's Clark and Perry on the case. Da-na-na-na. Clark and Perry do what it takes. Da-na-na-na. Clark and Perry investigate.
The activities and interests of local artists in the Windy City's finest throughout both Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, Alberta. Available on TELUS, Optic TV, On Demand, VidFlex, YouTube, and more for limited time only. Terms and conditions apply.
Da-na-na-na.
Hello, and welcome again to the Windy City's finest. I'm Clark, he's Perry, and we're joined once again by Darin. This is going to be pretty fun. I'm very interested in this. We had a chance to meet with you and talk about and work on some photographs and everything. And we're going to have a chance to kind of dive a little bit deeper into your mind about how exactly the editing process and why you do the things that you do.
Okay.
To make the pictures that you do, for the most part. And then, of course, for our viewers, we have a small secret at the end. So stay tuned. So first things first, kind of what can you tell me about this image right here?
Well, it's kind of set up by Elise, who's a friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
She had dreaming up this idea. She wanted to do something like a little pagan, a little bit ritualistic, and so we started just kind of daydreaming about it and kind of imagining a scene, time of day, what kind of light, kind of a forested kind of situation, and maybe sort of a fairy creature. And we're not sure what we're going to do with the fairy creature, but this other friend, she had some ears. I don't know if you can actually see them very well in this. They're a little bit blurred out.
Oh, yeah.
They're kind of dangling
a little
down.
blurred out, but you can kind of see a little bit if we can get a zoom in on that as well too. Yeah, I see that.
They're there. They didn't really feature much in the actual final product, but so
it's very angelic and very fairy, like you said as well too, or otherworldly.
So just got to do the principal photography. So you just get in there and set everyone up and put in the right spots. And I think I had a little off-camera flash, so it's kind of like lighting her a little bit. You can sort of see the light kind of hitting the side. And so I go from this, and then through the editing process, then we
have this as a final product. Wow.
So it's subtle. So I kind of ghosted the sheet. So if we go back.
Oh, yeah.
If you go back, you can sort of see what it was. Yeah, then you go back again. Oh. Yeah, so made that, put a little bit of sparkle in there, a little bit of like lens flares, kind of create more of a kind of magic. So it's subtle.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting too. So like you said, very subtle, but I find that, getting folks in the poses, getting in the costumes as well too, and even this lighting, like just to begin with as well too, is fantastic and ideal for a lot of like a photo like this too. So a lot of this would kind of be more related to the setting too. So when you were setting up for this photo, you had the idea originally came from your friend here.
Yeah.
But like where exactly did you take their inspiration and add your own flair to it?
Probably getting the fairy, location, sort of some preliminary ideas about the edits. It's very collaborative, so I try to work with the people, because if they're invested in the idea as much as I am, I feel like it conveys better.
Yeah.
And we took not just this shot, but we took dozens of shots, different angles. And actually, our original concept was different. They were like facing each other. But when we actually got there and you start photographing, sometimes things develop and something else works better. So that's what happened in this case.
Well, we kind of flip-flop and change minds all the time as well too, and like in reality, that idea just kind of deepens and evolves and changes too. No, that's very interesting. So that's a really subtle change, but adds like an extra bit of quality onto that photo. That's really nice. Excellent. So we have kind of additionally as well too. This is what can you tell me about this? What am I looking at here?
So this one's mostly my idea. So I found this metal crown. It's basically tin. And I wanted to do something like sort of, I don't know if it was a Hamlet thing. It was a bit Hamlet inspired, but I wanted sort of this female ghost, and maybe not a skull. I just got a moon that lit up for it by itself. And then I just got a big sheet of like translucent material and draped her over it and put the crown on and lit her up with some lights and just asked her to pose and do certain things. And the raw image is very it is very raw. It's like just the basic form and but I can go from that and I can envision what it could become.
Right.
Which, through editing, became this.
Wow.
So that's just finding.
That's a lot more than just subtle.
yeah, this one is a bit more work.
Yeah.
And it's very subtle, but you can see, you probably can't see it maybe on the film, but she's actually standing on like rows of skulls, and
that's insane. Yeah.
put a little bit of mist in the air. The forest scene, I think I went on the internet and just found some generic image and just plopped it in, and it worked out. So.
And so is it more like layers for yourself? Where
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And so how does that necessarily look? Where do you start when it comes to this photo?
Clipping the form out.
Mm-hmm.
So getting the background out of there.
Of just your model. Yeah.
Yeah. Then adjusting the light and color on them so that it all meshes. You can see in the previous shot there's kind of like a hard shadow here, kind of like through the middle.
Got you. Yeah. Right there.
So yeah, so you just got to blend that out. But it made sense for this because I wanted this kind of ghostly kind of feel where it descended into dark.
Yeah.
And she's kind of a gothic kind of person, so she's like into the idea as well. Even though it was all my idea, she was happy to participate and
very supportive of it as well too. Okay. So then it's the lighting as well too, and I noticed that there's a background change entirely as well too. We're doing this in maybe a studio apartment. We're moving now into the depths of the dark forest as well. So where do you throw that layer in?
That probably after she's clipped out and I've kind of adjusted the light on her, then I'll start working on extra things, making this more into a fireball. The background, I always knew it was going to be a foresty kind of situation, so that was early on. And it's just finding the right one that was silhouetted. I can't remember what the original one even looked like. I don't know if it could have been a daytime photo actually, but you just crank the contrast up, and through different Photoshop methods, you can integrate it and make everything look like it's together.
And this all came from initially from what you said, the crown. This is what really inspired that piece as well too. So I'm kind of curious. You had something that was very, very subtle. A lot of the background did a lot of work for you as well too. What changes when it comes to this photo, for example, where like I would argue and say this costume is very thought of and is very there.
Yeah.
What kind of tells you when you need to take something subtle and when you need to
go dramatic?
Go dramatic, yes.
I think it's just in my head. I kind of project. For this one especially, I knew exactly what I wanted. We didn't take that many photos. We just did a few different variations. So yeah, so the process was a lot more to the point. Like I knew it was going to be a background with forest, and so it just.
It's kind of like change of setting versus like how do we put it here? Where this I guess was more adding more of a atmosphere to it.
Yep. Atmosphere.
There we go.
Yeah.
So for subtle changes, and don't let me speak for you, of course, but from what I've gathered so far, a subtle change is more for like an atmospheric like presentation where you're trying to literally transport this figure, this subject into a different location.
Yeah.
And adding other subtle pieces like the lighting to help that atmosphere kind of
right. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, it really fantastic work. And for those folks that are tuning in, I remember skimming a couple of these photos, but I don't actually know what the edits are going to look like. So I'm actually this surprised me. This surprised me quite a bit. I was like, wait, is this the edit, or like I thought we got our presentation a little mixed up.
It's good to start with.
Yeah.
You want to get as much in the camera as you can.
Yeah.
Because that'll make the process later easier. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you like? Let's dive in a little bit more into that. Like, what do you mean by that exactly? Like,
well, if I can get the light on them and the costuming and the props, everything sort of set up, so that so the raw base material, I guess your canvas that you're working with is as close as you could get in camera to what you eventually want. There's just less editing process, and and less difficulties you have to overcome.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
makes sense too, because there's a reason why you were able to do a subtle touch here and more of a dramatic change
Yes.
here, right?
Yeah.
Because you weren't physically in the dark forest before. You had to make that. So no, that
Mhm.
makes sense. Okay, let's see what came next. Oh wow.
Okay.
I have to kind of take a second look. That is the original photo, folks.
This is the original, yeah.
That is
So
insane.
We took
Wow.
it like just after night, just after the sunset.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How, I don't know if we spot lit her with something, because she does have a bit of light on her.
Yeah, yeah.
By the way, we went over by Medalta, and in the back they've got these heaps of old broken porcelain that's been grown over with grass, so that's what she's standing on.
Right.
I think that's the same material as the last photo, just repurposed again.
Yep, yep. I noticed that as well too. I was like, yeah, it's a very flowy form, just like the previous. Okay.
And this, probably the initial inspiration was the mask.
Mm-hmm.
So she had a white rabbit mask, and our first initial thought was we're going to go find a forest, and I was going to have her sort of like peeking, almost this surreal thing where she'd be like peeking out from behind trees.
Right.
But repeated throughout the forest, there'd be all these rabbits going from the
Yeah.
foreground to the background.
Yeah.
And then wherever the tree cut her off, I would digitally just edit her out. But finding the right forest and the right conditions and stuff that around here in Medicine Hat, maybe there isn't the kind of forest I wanted.
Yeah, that proves to be a little bit more challenging, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you find only a bunch of very skinny trees that's and varying sizes and not the right look, right?
Right.
So,
Yep.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
So then you adapt. So then we thought we're going to go like this, night
Mhm.
sky, like there's a bit of stars in there.
Yeah, I see that.
And I said, we're going to do something with starscape. And even though we couldn't get like an actual true starscape, I knew that I could edit one in and make it look interesting. So
Let's see what we had.
that's what we came with to.
Wow. That blends in very nicely.
Yeah. So just had, of course, you can go online, you go to NASA, and there's all kinds of star fields you can bring in, and you just layer it in, and through editing you can blend it, make sure all the color palette's all similar. Then you can just brush in your own like little fog. So I was trying to get like the starlight kind of going like this, and then kind of emerging like a cloud kind of spreading behind her.
Yeah. So this character here, like, are they kind of swooshing in? Like this visual image, like what's the story that it tells?
Oh, see, that's the kind of thing where it's like, I think people develop their own story about it.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like you're going for visual effect, and I wanted her to be sort of like this merging between like foreground and the background, like space, and she's sort of like, I don't know if she's like space rabbit, but there's no like deep meaning other than just something visually arresting where you can sort of kind of dwell on it for a bit. Yeah.
I find it very almost spiritual. Or something like that as well too, where you have kind of like the spirit of this rabbit is kind of in the night sky, kind of finding its like maybe its old den or something like that. It's
I know,
coming
'cause
back
it's
to
white.
haunt the place maybe or
See,
something.
there's
right?
See, it's interesting because the previous image is probably informing you your interpretation of this too, like the spiritual, and like maybe that's a theme that I'm not even aware of. Maybe I have a lot of ghostly specter kind of things going on, but
yeah. So how much? So like this shape right here really connects in with the original of this flowing form.
Yeah.
So how much? I know that we talked about your subject and like your canvas, in your words, really informs what you're going to be able to be capable of doing. When it comes to this canvas here, like, does flow go with kind of like these smoother motions, or what can you tell me about that? Because what specifically I see is that there's that connection there where it connects with this flow here, but we have this very like static object.
Yeah.
That is.
It's almost obliterated and
blended over. So
Yeah.
what can you tell me about that?
It's kind of like riding a bike. Like, you can ride a bike, you know how you ride a bike.
Right.
But explaining how it all kind of goes, it feels very intuitive. Like, I don't think I calculated it it just seemed natural. So you just sort of just do it, and yeah, you get inspired by the form and the shapes and the direction of things, and then you kind of work with the raw material, and this feels natural. I think this could have also worked even without a starscape, even if there was no. It connects, but even without it, I think it could have been. Now I kind of want to go back and see if it's true.
But there's so many different ways that you can take it too. I'm just kind of curious to know your thoughts about like how else could this go, or what were your thoughts when you may have edited onto this. Like one thing I have to compliment too is the stark contrast of this horizon, where it's like where we didn't have too many stars. This itself is a beautiful image for sure.
Thanks.
And this really kind of highlights really kind of highlights that contrast between the very starry night sky and maybe more of a plain bottom, grassy lands or something like that.
I think I thought of Watership Down a bit when I was doing this, which is that.
Oh yeah.
As a kid, you watch the cartoon. It's kind of a creepy. My memory of it is a creepy cartoon. Like there's like rabbits and they were fighting each other and they died. And as a kid watching it, you think you're watching a cartoon, and then it got real serious real fast. So
yeah.
I remember like thinking about that while I was doing this, but I don't know if it figured in. So that's a little anecdote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, lovely image, and I really like that conversation about that flow. It seems to fit and go with what your gut says for the most part. If it looks nice, it probably is nice.
Yeah, and the spiritual element it does have a spiritual vibe. I don't know if it's haunting.
I don't want to say that either.
Yeah.
And why might that be?
That is an interesting question, actually.
I find, and this is kind of the joy of talking about this, there's a lot of like similar colors here, but what is that vibe? Is it maybe, I find it's very harsh, like contrast. Again, we see kind of a very imposing figure with very like stark, like straight lines and everything, where we see something very much more flowy.
Yeah. Same
colors still.
It's gentler.
But yes, gentler or something like that. Ah, that's lovely. I love talking about stuff like this. The interpretations. Okay, perfect. Let's I still feel like we got stuff that we can talk about, but let's move on to the next photo here. Okay.
All right. So I found this because for some reason I actually took images of the process from this, which is the raw photo I took of Manjeet. So I had her stand on this plinth because I want to get a lot of length.
A lot of length from this fabric here. Yeah, I see that.
And I like kind of the flow and how it drapes. And I did have I'm a big Gustav Klimt fan, so I was trying to go for something that had that kind of feel. And he has a lot of figures that have like flowing, draping kind of fabric. But then, let's go on.
Oh.
So I had to isolate her.
Okay.
I didn't have to do it like super cleanly.
Yep.
I just had to have enough that I wanted like her actual body and hands and stuff to be like a separate element.
Yeah. So this was the first step of your editing process as well too. Very interesting. And then we had oh, I see.
So that's where I start going in and start tracing the flow of the fabric and getting all the folds in. And
is this all hand drawn?
It's actually like, at the time I was using, I still use Illustrator, but this is Adobe Illustrator.
Okay.
And at the time I'm just using mouse and clicking and drawing lines. Like
kind of like starting at one point, drawing a line to end the second. Okay, nice. Interesting.
It's a vector art.
Yeah.
So it uses like kind of mathematically calculated curves and lines. So you have a lot of flexibility to tweak and fiddle. But so that's like the base. So I've got the base form set up.
Right.
And then from there I can start patterning, and that's where I get into the heavier details. And you can see there.
Wow.
Color palettes change.
Yeah.
You go deep into like a lot of patterning.
Yeah.
And
I was about to say it's beautiful.
Yeah. So I did that for probably 5 or 6 hours of just drawing and changing and altering, and I created custom brushes to make the patterns.
Wow.
and coloring them the way I wanted. And I went for that warm palette. I went kind of like a green and a deep green.
Yeah.
Then I made all these little coins. At the time, I was playing around with 3D rendering. So I made these actual coins, and let's see if I can zoom in. Or maybe not. Oh yeah.
There you go.
Oh, I don't have the resolution here. But yeah, so I got the coin set up and lit so that they look kind of faceted. And yeah, that was the biggest part of the job, is doing all that.
All the small, intricate details.
Yeah, that's what...
That's honestly what takes the longest time, but can make it so worth it as well too. When you walk away from it and it almost looks part of it. And this is very interesting too, because this is so far the first that we're presenting of your work here that isn't necessarily, like, I would say, character or creature based.
Yeah,
this is more like you
like
literally it's a portrait. Yeah. Like you created the fabric that is that this person is wearing as well too. So I'm curious as well, like what kind of informs fabric versus character?
Oh man,
that's so strange and so vague. I'm so sorry, everybody, for asking the vaguest questions, but I think it's I think it's worth talking about.
Yeah, my art teacher used to talk about wherever you drape a human in, whether it's clothing or a jacket or fabric, humans just like to read into it. So they start to characterize that person based on, I don't know, things they could relate to in their life. Like, I don't know I don't know what this is communicating, and I didn't have any particular intent of communicating a particular thing.
Yeah.
Could be like colors that she appreciated, like she liked that red. So, but it doesn't really say much about her.
Other than she's really tall.
Yes, I have that exaggerated length. Yeah. Again, like the last one with Rabbit, it's sort of like you can, interpret this differently. Like if I had colored her all like with white, let's say, then you might start thinking like, oh, is this some kind of like priestess, or maybe she's a spa person? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's and that's interesting to kind of like comment on. Everybody's interpretation is going to try to come from another aspect of their own life. Like maybe somebody who watches a lot of like Egyptian-based movies or something like that, just came out of watching an Indiana Jones film or something like that, comes out and is like, oh yeah, this looks like Princess Cleopatra or something like that, or out of there, right? So like there's a lot of different ways that you can change that. I'm kind of curious still, like what may have inspired you more? Like, so what I'm trying to get here is that your canvas, debatably, doesn't necessarily need to be there in order to inform the creation of this, or does it?
You're talking about the canvas being the person.
Yeah, being the person. I guess that's a lie, because you used this. This was the image that you were initially going for. Yeah. So they are still part of that canvas, and the length is what you were really, really looking at.
That length is a big part of it. Maybe it's to make her more kind of regal, maybe.
Ah, yes.
And maybe queen-like or nobility, especially with that tall, like, length. There's something imposing about it.
And even the way that they're like holding the fabric as well too, a very relaxed and kind of upwards kind of chin and everything as well too.
And
that really helps.
Probably directed her to actually tilt her head a certain way. Those are the kinds of things that it's like, it's intuitive, and it's not necessarily calculated, like plotted out. It's just sort of like, this feels like the right thing.
This feels like the right thing when looking at this. Yeah. This all looks very natural, and just how do we get exactly there? Very, very interesting. It's just it's like a step-by-step process, it seems. No.
Then there's the background, which is next.
Oh my goodness, we're not even done yet.
No, then you have to fill it in. So
wow.
So doing the radiating lines, that little kind of, I don't know what you call that behind her, like a sheet, not a shield, like as far as like a
crest.
A crest. Looking closely, there's like little roses sort of
Oh my.
Oh,
yeah.
and I screwed it up.
Oh, tech support. Perry.
Oh, it reopened. All right. There. Okay. So
Back at it like nothing happened.
there are little roses in there, though.
If you want to scroll in, it's just 2 fingers.
Okay, there. Oh, you can see them. This has enough resolution you can actually.
Nice. And I hadn't even noticed the roses at first as well too. That's oh wow, look at, it's like these are coins as well too.
Yeah. I wonder if this has, you can't quite see what the, and I think they're little Medusa heads actually when you see the full resolution one.
Wow.
So I don't know what that says.
That says, well, that can say so much, right? And
can,
again,
yep.
people can and will come to their own conclusions based off that. But maybe it's like it's a Medusa cult or something like that. This is the high priestess.
Yeah.
No, that's very interesting. So, what's like the roses here? I have a question about.
Mm-hmm.
Is this? How do I word it right? But for a lack of better way of saying, are the roses, like, what inspired placing them there? Is it to like maybe counter empty or negative space, or is it more of trying to add something onto whatever you already
It's texture,
yeah,
for one thing, and it's subtle enough that people connect to roses in different ways. So it's like a romantic thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that probably plays into this situation as well.
I think it does. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Again, kind of like you mentioned, it's more gentle. And again, you just look at the pose. You look at the grasp. You look at kind of like that elevated or relaxed look, it seems. So it kind of is very soothing.
Yeah.
I guess it's not as harsh as like the intimidating posture of that previous ghost. Okay. No. That's interesting.
An interesting thing about this also is we gave this to a local artist. She operates out of Inspire Studio and Cafe. Her name's Maureen Newton. She actually did an oil painting interpretation of this. So
wow.
So she has in her house hanging on her wall the oil painting of this, and she even what is that called, gilding? She put glue down and she actually put gold foil on it.
Oh my
So
goodness.
it's got this
very unique shine.
I look at it, I'm like, it's very impressive.
Wow.
You can go by her house, and if the light's right, you can see the reflections. Even before you go inside, you can see the glitter of the gold.
That's
really
amazing.
cool.
That's amazing. Awesome. Well, that's a lovely amount of conversation just based off of what looks initially to be a very long profile of a photo as well too. No, thank you for indulging me on those questions. What do we have here next? More flowy fabric. I like this. I like this. This is an original photo. Again, I'm just flabbergasted by that.
I think some of these are going to have some manipulation.
Yeah.
And like digital illustration and stuff. But some are just, they are shot as they were in the situation. So I got this, I think it was like 6 or 7 meters of this fabric. Wow. And we were just planning on going out and just having it draped in kind of like the fabric kind of flowing across all the surface. But we got out there and it was so windy. And we were trying to control it and it was like flapping around. So I'm like, well, let's just work with this situation. And so I held the camera in one hand, I held the fabric in the other, and stood on one corner and was like just trying to handle it. And it was pulling and snapping in the wind, and I'm trying to shoot at the same time.
Wow.
That's why this kind of goes up here, because that's where my hand was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And again, like it looks like we already have, talking about the canvas wise, like this, we have I'm hoping is a black and white filter.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I don't know, this side of the country is very gray on this type of day, but
yeah,
but
I converted it to black and white. Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what's next here.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So this was in and of itself a photo right here. I have some more questions now that we know that this is kind of it here. I really, so you've probably taken photos, probably like 25, 50, 150 or so, however many it really takes.
Yeah.
To kind of set yourself up for this, what story does this necessarily tell you when trying to throw on a filter just as simple as black and white.
Yeah, I did a. When you convert to black and white, it kind of emphasizes the. I wish I had a color version of it, but
yeah,
it emphasizes all those contrasts in from bright to dark. So
right, yeah,
in the
simplifies the contrast almost.
yeah,
Yeah.
that becomes. How could I explain it? I'm trying to go back to my art education. When you pull color out of it, color it informs you in different ways. Like you see things differently. When you see it just black and white, you're kind of looking more at like form and shape and flow of lines, and it's less for your head to kind of have to take in.
Yeah, less distractions
Yeah.
as well, right?
Yeah.
Because for me, the focal point is nothing that is on this landscape, nothing that's below here. It's more drawing my eye towards this bright white here, and eventually what my eye is caught on is this detail, this subtle detail of the face.
Yeah, I think everyone's attention goes straight there. That's pretty normal. And then then all these lines. I always wish I could have recreated this and had people there to hold it for me. But it's hard to interpret, or it's hard to tell, like, when's it going to be windy? And having someone on call where you can rush out and take the photo, like, then, yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. Awesome. Well, yeah, even as simple as, like, working with your canvas and having a simple black and white filter can really help, like, draw this eye and eliminate these distractions to get down to the point of what you're trying to present. Oh, yeah, I enjoy that.
It's Clark and Perry on the case. Da-na-na-na. Clark and Perry do what it takes. Da-na-na-na. Clark and Perry investigate.
The activities and interests of local artists in the Windy City's finest throughout both Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, Alberta. Available on TELUS, Optic TV, On Demand, VidFlex, YouTube, and more for limited time only. Terms and conditions apply.
Da-na-na-na.